I have to pull the jelly beans back out. Just to look at. Ooh. Welcome back to Dungeons and Dragons Online. Today I am on Shadowdale, which is the server I play on for casual, just with myself or with family or friends. This is not the server I usually record on, except for, weird circumstances. But that's not what I'm talking about. Not what I want to talk about today. Today I want to talk about how do I go about making a character and how you might end up having, 30 or more. Now I can go through the process of it, and I will, but first I'm gonna think about why I'm making a character. Most of the characters I make are made to answer a question. Each one answers a different question. And through seeking the answer to that question, I learn more about how to build more characters and more about the game, and just learn more in general. Now, the question can be anything from how does this class play? If I don't know how a class is meant to be played, I might make a new character just to explore it and see it at face value. It might be, why does this melee class let me use longbows? I might try a custom-made path rather, that lets me use longbows and may end up combining 2 or even 3 classes together just to answer the question of why can I use longbows? It might be something silly like, if I can find her. There's a lot of characters here. It's very upsetting. Might be a question like, how would this character translate into this game if I were to build them here? This character here is meant to represent a character in another game series with as many mechanics as I can to emulate that character. Now granted, the character I'm trying to emulate is far more powerful than anything I could ever make in this game, but that's not really the point. Those are just some examples. This one is, I wanted to make a character that was a druid that focused on the wolf form. So I splashed in some barbarian levels for extra damage and resistance. And then they nerfed the heck out of the melee feats I was using, so she still does fine. Mostly. The other thing I will do with these characters is I will keep them focused. Each character has 1 or 2 things they are very good at doing, and they're not really good at doing much else. Some might see that as a problem, and if you're trying to play this game by yourself, it will be. But if you're playing with friends or with groups, you should be able to cover each other's bases fairly easily. A lot of these characters end up being a DPS role because I really enjoy tearing through enemies as much as I possibly can. However, they also end up usually with some form of support. Usually buffs, sometimes healing. As such, the 2 clerics, the cleric and the paladin I've done, also end up, you might think just seeing cleric 20 that this is meant to be a healer. And while she can heal, she's more made to do damage with longbows, my favorite weapon. So how do I actually go about creating a new character? Well, that's what this button down here does. You click it, it brings you to this screen here. And right away, you're presented with a list of different styles of gameplay. But if you're paying attention to it earlier, just because it says melee doesn't mean you're locked into melee. This fighter here can be just as good with longbows, or you can give them some use magic device as a skill, and they can kind of heal with wands, maybe. They can kind of do spell damage with wands and scrolls. Your Dragon Lord here, if you have access to it, would also be good for buffs and things. I found out recently you can in fact do longbows with a Barbarian. Very exciting. Paladin, again, you can do a DPS roll. You can do your tanky roll. You can do a healing support roll. I think as each class here is just as flexible as the next. It just depends on what you're wanting to do with them. Now they do give you some bonuses though. Fighters, barbarians, paladins, monks will have more hit points than the other two styles. And if you focus their melee paths, you'll have more damage output. But that doesn't mean you can't flex them into something they're not meant to be. Your spellcasters here are naturally very squishy. Even the druid, by default, is rather squishy. But again, you can flex them to be anything. You can have your sorcerers, your clerics, your warlocks. They can be frontline fighters. They can be ranged attackers. They can also just be, they're spell damaging spell bombs. And then here in Specialist, we've got your jacks of all trades. These are kind of like middle range for hit points. Rogue, hello. Bard, still kind of squishy. Artificer also kind of, like these four are also kind of squishy. Your Artificer is basically a wizard but with robots. And your Alchemist is basically a wizard but with potions. And again, as a ranger, you don't have to just range. You can melee if you want to. You can, I guess, use their spells. They don't get many, but you can use their spells for effect. More than likely, though, you're going to want to do either melee or ranged with these. Rogues, they're meant to be a DPS class, but like either from a range or from the side. They're not meant to tank, so they will be squishy. Bards here, and again, all of these, again, use magic device with scrolls and wands. You can cover some of your bases that you're missing. Bard's a good one. That's actually a good all-rounder because they can do your melee, they can do your ranged, and they can do your spellcasting just fine. Same with Artificer, and I think Alchemist as well. I've seen like you can just do a lot. As for path, by default coming into the game, you should have access to these here. These are pre-built, predetermined ways to play. I personally prefer to click customize. Especially if I'm trying to answer a question, I want to try and figure it out. And the game gives you ways to fix your mistakes if you get it wrong. So don't worry if you make a mistake, you can fix it later. I have access to all the races available right now because I paid for them, but I have a feeling half of these are going to be restricted, or maybe a third. I don't remember. I don't know what the screen looks like, but that's the next thing too. Is if you have an idea for a character for their class. You pick their class you want them to play. I'm not going to go all the way through creating a character on this server because I've already got... I'll get up to naming the character and then I'll back all the way out. How's about that? Because I already got 30 on this character on the server and I don't need more yet. So let's say I wanted to make, I don't know. Let's say I wanted to make, oh, what would I want to make? All right, so let's ask a question. Let's ask a question. What question do we want to ask? Well, I've already answered the questions on these. So I guess my question now would be, would a wizard No, that's a dumb question. It wouldn't. Would it? Okay, let's ask a question here. I've been going on and on about longbows. I'm just going to use it as an example because that's what I'm stuck on right now. Would a wizard be good with longbows? Keep in mind, they are squishy, and you still want to be able to cast your spells in a pinch, which, by the way, are going to do way more damage than the longbow. So I'm going to go click Wizard. I'm going to click Customize. Now for this, I have several options. Because I know I want to use the longbow, I can pick Human. I can pick, I think, Elf Corvair. I can pick Elf Wood, assuming they have the same proficiencies. Or I can pick Half Elf. Elf Corvair and Elf Wood would give me proficiency with longbows right off the bat. Easy. However, their intelligence would be lower. Elf Wood would lower their intelligence, but increase our dexterity. So we would be good with the longbow off the bat. But because we're a wizard, we want a high intelligence. Corvair would give us higher dexterity and lower constitution, so our intelligence wouldn't take a cut, but our constitution would, and we want to be able to survive attacks. Half Elf, on the other hand, keeps us in the middle. However, they get some of the Elven feats. We do not gain proficiencies. We count as a human and an elf for the purposes of spell effects. Human, on the other hand, gives us extra feats as we level up. And lets us just basically be more flexible with what we're doing. So if your question doesn't involve like a specific weapon, like these would allow you to get, then Human is a good bet just to feel things out, so you can be a bit more flexible. And then once you're certain of the answer of the question, you can pick one of the other races on the next lap with the character. Or if you've already answered the question, you can just pick something else and try and answer a different question. For this, I want to do Half Elf. Because I believe our dilettante that we get from being a half elf will allow us to gain some of those proficiencies anyway. So now we get to stats. We have here on the right a good bullet point of which stats are important for the class you're choosing to start with and why they are important. So a good constitution is going to be good no matter what because we are a wizard and we don't have a lot. Our hit dice is the smallest is one of the smallest of the classes. I think it's like a D6. So every time we level up, we'll get at most 6 points plus our proficiency bonus per level. Granted, the Dungeons & Dragons Online also adds like a toughness modifier. So you'll get a little bit of extra hit points on top of that to compensate for the fact that the game is real time and has been power crept all over the place. So enemies that would have been fine to go up against can now hit harder. But that's fine. We're planning on staying in the back line anyway. We want to get our intelligence up as much as we can get it without going all the way, because we still want points to spend here. We also want, so I'll put it at 16, our dexterity up as well. I'm going to pump these up so that they're 0. In fact, I might buff our wisdom by 1. And our dexterity by 1. So that's what my stats are looking at. Now these stats... Okay, these stats actually do more than just what it says here. Strength, for instance, determines what we can do in melee, but also how much we can carry on our person. The stronger your character, the more weight in items you can handle. There are certain spells that will reduce this score, spells and effects. This score can take damage. All of these scores can take damage. If your strength is reduced low enough, you will become weighed down by the items in your backpack, and you may become unable to move. This can be very dangerous if you're surrounded by enemies or stuck in an area of effect that is really bad for you. What this also does is affect your ability to hit targets in melee and damage them in melee. Dexterity, conversely, affects your armor class and how nimble and quick you are. It also, if you're a rogue, affects how well you can disable locks and traps. It's also important for reflex saves, which are one of the more common saving throws in this game. Constitution affects hit points and fortitude saving throws. So if you get hit by a disease or a poison that might lower any of these stats, you're going to be rolling a fortitude saving throw. So having this up high not only gives you more hit points, but helps you resist diseases and poisons that can damage any one of these. Intelligence. This does so much. Different classes are affected by it differently. Wizard is one of them, I believe, gets more out of it than others. Rogue gets the most out of it. What this does is gives you skill points, mostly. It is your character's ability to retain information. It is, for wizards, alchemists, and artificers, I see it right there on the screen. It also affects our skill points and our spell saving throws, these difficulty checks. So if a monster wants to make a saving throw against one of our spells, this intelligence, having a high intelligence, makes it harder for them to resist those spells. Wisdom, as it says here, is will saves. So if someone tries to cast a compulsion spell on you or charm spell or something like that, a higher wisdom score will help you resist that kind of effect. And if you're a cleric, druid, paladin, ranger, or monk, your resource of choice gets increased as well. Wisdom also affects your senses. It doesn't say it here in the blurb, but a higher wisdom will help you spot and listen for enemies sooner, and will help you detect more often when traps are nearby. Conversely, intelligence, a higher intelligence, back up to this one, will help you find those traps and hidden doors more easily by actively searching for them. And then the last one, charisma. This is your charisma. It's in the name. If you're a sorcerer, bard, or favorite soul, you get increased resources and spellcasting DCs, blah, blah, blah. But also, charisma is the one used for the social checks within the game. Diplomacy, bluff, intimidate, haggling. Those are affected by charisma. A higher charisma score will help you succeed in things that would otherwise be rather difficult. Unfortunately for myself, most of my characters are combat focused, so I often, even with a high charisma character, skip out on the social skills. So once we've talked about that, next is the actual skill points. At level 1, with +2 to our charisma, we get 20 points. If I go back, if I knock this all the way down to +0 and I don't know, put points into that, we would have had 8. So this is why having a higher intelligence could be important, even for something like a barbarian. For wizards, what we really want is concentration and spellcraft. Since we have points, I'm going to go ahead and put points into Tumble. Use Magic Device. Spot. And Listen. I might even put points into Balance. I've chosen... maybe I should put points into Social Skill too. Nah, we're a wizard. We're a shut-in. Okay. So, concentration makes our spells less likely to be broken. By the way, if you're confused, these are sorted in alphabetical order and then grouped by which ones do not take a penalty. So the ones with a star next to them will take a penalty to put points into. You'll only be able to put half a point in at a time. And only full points will give you a modifier. And then it counts the total modifier here. So you can see what you add to your skill checks. So back up here. The concentration I've chosen to make our spells less likely to break when we take damage. Spellcraft I have chosen to make our spells do more damage. Balance I have chosen so that if we get knocked down, we don't take as long to stand back up. Listen I've chosen to listen out for, try to listen out more often for enemies that are trying to sneak up on us. Spot I have chosen so it can hopefully be more likely to spot enemies that are sneaking up on us. If we're going up for a ranged build or something like that, we're not going to be getting up close to enemies. So being able to catch them from farther away is probably a good idea. Tumble I've chosen because without any points into Tumble, you don't really tumble. You just kind of awkwardly shuffle like an inch to the left or right. Putting points into it, though, lets you tumble and helps you take less damage from falling. The higher the number, the farther you can fall before you take damage, and the less damage you take when you do fall. It does cap out. I think most of these cap out at 40 before you stop seeing their effects. And use Magic Device, I've chosen, so that we can more easily use items that are not part of our class training. So I can more easily use something like, I don't know, a Cleric's Raise a Dead Scroll without immediately failing. The higher your use magic device, the lower the chance of failing to use an item that you're not trained to be using. A lot of the rest of these, though, if I wanted to pick them, repair is an activated skill, but it also where we can repair a downed living construct, downed but not dead. Alternatively, it buffs any spells or abilities that use it. Most of these are like that. Bluff will allow us to sneak attack an enemy that otherwise knows that we're there, just for a little bit. However, it's a skill check, and if they make the saving throw, they're not fooled. Diplomacy, also an activated skill. We click it, and enemies around us are less likely to want to hurt us and more likely to seek other targets nearby. Haggle here is a passive skill. While we're shopping, prices might get reduced. So if you're playing a character that doesn't summon their own ammunition, haggle is a good choice because then you can just you get a discount at the shops. Heal's another good one for any class actually, because passive, like it's an activated skill, so you can use it on a downed ally, not a construct. Again, downed but not dead, to bring them back to 1 hit point, or it buffs your healing spells. Hide, I've got a whole video going on about that, but I might have to re-record that because I think it's not quite accurate. I'm not sure. But essentially, you can attempt to hide to sneak past enemies, monsters, etc. However, it's really inconsistent, and most of the places where you could hide are very well illuminated, so it ends up not working anyway. And most of the enemies you end up trying to hide from just have a very high perception. They'll just be able to see you. Add to that, if you try to sneak up right next to a monster, they'll just see you anyway because you're right next to them. Intimidate. This is the one for your tanks. So Intimidate will attempt to aggravate nearby monsters and draw them towards you. It doesn't work on every monster. In fact, social skills don't work on some monsters. Don't really know what talking and stuff is. So you got like I think it's like certain forms of undead, certain constructs, certain oozes don't really respond to the activated social skills. But everything else is fair game. I think it's like only like a quarter of the game, as it doesn't affect by that. Don't worry about it. There's some abilities that work like Intimidate, work like Diplomacy, work like Bluff, and to work on those anyway. It's kind of weird. Jump's the strength thing. So not only is it affected by strength, it is a technically passive ability. You press your spacebar, you jump. Listen, I just tried to talk about this. It's like listen and spot. These are two ways that you can sense monsters and effects that are otherwise hidden. Move silently, same as hide. You can attempt to sneak past somebody. Perform. So this is something the bard gets. You can take it if you really want to, even if you're not a bard, but don't really have much use for it outside of being a bard. Although it says it does improve sonic-based spell damage, so I guess if you're a sorcerer or something using sonic spell damage, you can do that. Outside of having bard levels, there's not really much use to take this one. Search. If you are the searchy type, the trappy type, you're going to want to take search, because that lets you find your hidden doors, your trap boxes, your other hidden hazards more easily, or at all. Swim. This one is affected by your armor. Same as hide and move silently, but this one especially is affected by your armor and also your strength score. The higher this number, the faster you can swim and the longer you can swim in water before you drown. And drowning's just taking damage over time until you pass out and die. Tumble, I just covered that and use my... Okay. So next we can go through our feats. Because I chose half elf, I get a special purple feat. And our class gets us these yellow feats. And we have a regular feat on top. So what was the question I asked? I asked, would a wizard do good with a longbow? Before I can answer that question, though, we are a wizard, so before I even pick any of the longbow-related feats, I'm scrolling down to find toughness. Somewhere. Where the heck? There it is. Next, I'm going to pick the racial bonus feat. We said we were wanting to do longbows. Ranger is really good at that and gives us proficiency with all martial ranged weapons, which includes longbows. Other options we have here are Artificer, which doesn't give us longbows, Alchemist, which also doesn't give us longbows, but does help us with spellcasting. Barbarian, which would give us damage reduction, but wouldn't give us ranged weapons. Rogue, which would give us sneak attack. And Wizard, which we're already doing. Says it's not recommended. That would be funny to try. I want to do Ranger. Might give us more spells. And then our class feat, so the yellow ones. Alright, at level 1, without knowing really what we're getting into, I'm just going to pick mental toughness, and that will give us more spell points. Yeah, without really knowing what spells we're going to get, I'm going to pick mental toughness. So next, we decided we're doing longbows. So that means rather than casting any of these really good damaging spells, we're going to be focusing on mostly buffs and not dying. Buffs and utility. So first things first, I'm picking shield. I'm picking... where'd Night Shield go? There's Night Shield. Do I have Mage Armor? I do. Three more spells. This is where it gets awkward, because I'm never sure what to take. I think Expeditions of Retreat. I'm going to find... Since I'm not a Surgy type, I want to get Detect Secret Doors. Do I have Knock at level 1? Oh, no, I think that's a level 2 spell. Yeah, let's just go ahead and get Featherfall. Let's make the Feather Cloak obsolete. Yeah. Alright, so this is a really weird, awkward build. Now, for our appearance. A lot of the characters I have in mind already have, like, certain looks that kind of fit with what I'm trying to do. Just do whatever you like. I'll be back. Honestly, I just kind of hit randomize a few times until I got to this one. Yeah, it's fine. Alright, now the name. The name. Pick a name that will help you remember what you're doing. It can be the name of a character, but with, slight modifications, since a lot of names you could pick might be taken already. The first name in the bar here is the name the game checks for your save file for this character. So, it's also the one that gets used in chat. So you only get, there can't be two people with the same first name. Not the same exact first name anyway. So if you have a bunch of characters you want to make, but they're all like common names, I would put like a prefix or something in the front here, or in the back, or just, add something to know it's you or one of your characters, and then the name of that character or something like that, or just make small modifications. I think what the game does, if you have your own characters from other servers jump in, it'll add a -1 at the end, which I can't do here. And that's the only way to get the -1 at the end. So if you see a character that's got a -1, -2, -32 at the end of it, that's because someone made that character on another server and then moved it over, and it just appended a number to the end of it. Now my trouble here is I've already used all the character names I like. I'm gonna go to Sol, as in the name of the sun, and then some sort of food. Hmm. Some sort of food to go with Wizard Longbow. This is like taking Arcane Archer to the extreme. Now I probably won't be able to do Soul Rock because that's a Pokemon and that's probably already taken by somebody. Wizard with a longbow. Tapioca. Now we can go the obvious route and say pudding. I like to think more of it as a salad. And then your alignment here, under normal circumstances, your alignment doesn't really affect much. However, there are certain items, certain spells, certain characters that check for your alignment and do different things depending on what your alignment is. For most of the weapons, if you are, say, lawful good and try to hold an evil weapon or a chaotic weapon, you'll take a negative level while you're holding that weapon. There are some quests. There's a quest out in Giant Hold, I believe, where if you are a lawful character, you can talk to somebody. If you're not a lawful character, you get punished. There's even a druid spell, actually, I believe, or a cleric spell. Maybe it's a druid spell that checks how far away you are from true neutral and punishes you, you being the target, based on how far away you are. So if you're, say, lawful good, you would take twice as much damage from that spell. There aren't many effects in the game that actually check for your alignment, but those are some notable examples to think about existing. Beyond that, it's mostly here for roleplay purposes. So is your character a goody two-shoes that sticks to the rules? Do they just stick to the rules? Are they just a good person? Are they just here? What if they're a good person, but they don't really care about the rules? And what if they just really don't care about the rules? All things to think about. I think I'll do neutral good. So now we're on the title screen wearing our starter rags. These are what you wear when you end up on the shore. Except if you're like me, you don't end up on the shore. But Okay, so this is because I have veteran status, which I've already covered in another video. If you don't have veteran status, you'll instead start on the shore in Korthos, and you'll have to go travel through Korthos to answer your question, learning more about the game and yourself as you go. As it is, I would recommend traveling through Korthos, especially if this is your first character, one of your first few characters, maybe. Even if you have veteran status, because you'll actually have better chances at equipment than what the starter gear here can give you. And you might not be able to get a weapon right away that answers your question. You also, the other downside to starting with a veteran status character to learn a new character class is you don't get platinum or gold or silver or copper. You get whatever this Minotaur here gives you. But the upside is you get to start at a later level. So that brings me to the other reason to make so many characters. What if you're playing along with somebody, but they're level 4 or level 7, and you have veteran status? Well, you can do that. I think that's all I have for now. I've already covered veteran status. I've already covered a few times going through Korthos. I might play again with this character later, just to show off what she be doing. Just to see if I've answered the question. Until then, it's been fun talking about something other than losing a flaming cudgel in an explosion. Talk to you later. Have a good day.